Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel, with my coffee, with my books and my reviews, and a really nice overcast day that does keep threatening rain, so we will cross our fingers that we get there. I am actually off work today just simply because I did wake up in the middle of the night with a terrible migraine and have finally started to feel more like myself. So I thought, well, with this downtime, let me go ahead and review a couple of books. And the first one that we have today is America's Most Gothic, Haunted History Stranger Than Fiction by Leanne Renee Hieber and Andrea James. Now, so for this particular book, I'm not sure what I thought I was getting. Now, I will preface by saying I thought I already reviewed this, and when I was looking back through my videos that I was kind of planning out for the coming week or so, I didn't have it. And so I looked in my recycling bin to see, okay, well, did I accidentally delete it? Wasn't there. So we're just going to do it again. I can tell you that I've already written my review on Goodreads, so my review should be there at least. And now it will be on here as well. But let us dive into the summary before we get into my thoughts, because I prefer you guys to understand the foundation before we get to my thinking about the book. The Gothic, brooding, atmospheric, chilling, and not always the outpouring of feverish imagination, reality can be even stranger, as borne out in this lush and ghostly look at real people who lived and died amidst the trappings of the Gothic. Fog clinging to an isolated mansion, a dangerous patriarch or an overbearing matron, locked doors, and forbidden rooms. Whispers of murder and madness stumble into a Gothic tale, and it will haunt you like a ghost. We often think of the enduring tropes of Gothic in terms of fiction and film. So what I'm doing on my phone is I'm actually pulling up the book. Well, it's not there. I wonder if it expired on my NetGalley. Potentially. Sorry, I thought I could have it on my phone so that way I could kind of talk about some of the little segments or chapters that are within it. But anyway, we'll keep going. We often think of the enduring trope of the Gothic in terms of fiction and film, breath-catching escapes that tap into our fears, anxieties, forbidden desires, and unsettling dreams. But what if some of these chilly vibes are rooted in the experiences of real and tragic people who dance the macabre waltz with love and death? That's why we're here. Take the case of teenage Mercy Brown, victim or was it a predator? Of Rhode Island's vampire hysteria of the 1890s, Marguerite de la Roque, a French noblewoman condemned for sexual crimes, to Canada's long-lost Isle of Demons. What happened to her? And the barren landscape itself is the stuff of legend. And Mad Lucy Ludwell, the decidedly peculiar 18th century high society hauteur, driven mad in the Virginia estate she prowls to this day. President Helen Peabody's spirit still stringently watches over her woman's college, now part of Ohio's Miami University. Ghosts of workers lost in horrific conditions while building the Husak Temple, warn of imminent danger, settle in, there are more. Welcome to phantom ships, haunted academic halls, menacing landscapes, and family curses of America's Most Gothic. A tour of true spectral sighting and disordered minds. But it's sure to get under your skin. The haunted and haunting figures therein want it that way. Now, it is expected publication of September 30th, 2025, and it is kind of girthy at 416 pages. So just letting you know that if you pick it up, you'll have a good bit to read. I am going to my NetGalley on my computer because apparently this book does not seem to be on my phone, and I'm going to go to my shelf and see if we can pull it up on the reader here. And the reason I want to do that is because I think it's kind of interesting the way the book lays out the various, I don't want to call them subgenres, the way it lays out its kind of table of contents. And so we do have, let's just go to the table of contents. And we're going to talk about like how it's broken down. So we first start off with a wild and foreboding landscape. And so we're going to get a couple of like stories from the perspective of the two different authors. At the beginning of each story, such as the Canadian Gothic Bear Woman, I do believe that this is one that Leanne kind of spoke about, or Andrea spoke about. Okay, so that one's Andrea. And so then we switch gears and we go back to the table of contents, and we look at the next one, which is Dead Ships and Dark Dreams. And so they do kind of swap off between each other of talking about these various topics. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that because it seems as though these two individuals really do enjoy the Gothic vibe. And so what they've tried to do is find true life stories which almost border on the folklore as well. And so I was intrigued to a degree. However, it's the conveyance of the way these are written that I didn't find to be overly interesting. Now, when we talk about, and in the introduction, so I've got the introduction pulled up, and it says, the Gothic is popularly understood to contain immutable core elements. So it means that these are the things that you would expect when you walk into something that is considered Gothic, whether it's a Gothic estate, a Gothic book, a movie with these elements. And so there's probably a sense of isolation, gloomy weather. Now, I love gloomy weather, but does that make me Gothic? Should I be dressing in a more Gothic manner? Maybe this is my new fashion choice. I don't know. I love the aesthetics of it. I just don't know if I could truly pull it off because my blonde hair. Maybe. Anyway, an old house, a woman in peril, and a brooding or menacing man. Forbidding landscape, and an element of madness or instability. So I like the way that the book kind of lays it out, as you do, or at least in my personal opinion, when I pick up a Gothic book, those are some elements that really lend towards that. So if I pick up a book that says it's Gothic horror, I am wondering, is there something psychological? Is there something isolating? Is there something menacing lurking in the background? And so I appreciate all of that. And yet, it's just the way the story is kind of written that does not seem to grab me. I did think it was going to be some interesting myths and legends woven with some nonfiction in a haunting sort of way. I watch spooky ghost videos on YouTube, and I think they're fun even if they're not real, and that's okay. If they are or are not, that is not the point of me watching them. I find them entertaining, but it's the way they're usually conveyed that makes it feel a little creepy. So I kind of enjoy being creeped out a little bit. Now, it does not mean that I really fully enjoy slasher or thrillers in that sort of manner, or something that, like, what do they call it? Sympathetic something. I read about it the other day and I was like, oh no, that's why I can't watch cringe movies, is because I have like a sympathetic response where I'm feeling the cringe that the character should be feeling on a TV show. So I physically can't watch those types of things because I feel that same level of discomfort, and it makes me kind of shy away from it. I don't feel a spooky level like in that manner, but I like that vibe. But anyway, back to this collection. I thought I was walking into a book which was going to tell me stories in a haunting, sort of lingering manner, but it didn't feel that way. I feel as though they wrote it in a way that it's almost kind of first-person essay adjacent. And the reason I say that is because parts of each of these chapters, because it's broken into sections, and then it's broken into chapters within each of those sections. So you'll get the individual stories within the subsection of like wilderness and what have you. In each of these essays, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a cool story. I mean, yeah, why not, right? No. you even get some like various asides by the authors, like one of them mentioning a Thanksgiving dinner, their own personal family Thanksgiving dinner in the middle of a story. And it kind of takes me out of the mindset of wanting to continue reading, because I'm not looking for this type of book to have first person perspective on various like life events. I'm looking for this book to, I don't know, tell me something about, okay. And I guess I was hoping for was something like Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I was really looking for that mystery and intrigue with a bit of history. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. If you've read any of Eric Larson's books, he seems to do a pretty good job. Not all the time, some is a little bit dry. But a lot of times it's intriguing, and you do weave a nonfiction story with some of the myth and legend that still lingers from these events. And that's what I was hoping for. Not what I got. It may be nonfiction and may have a lot of historical value to it by putting these folklorish type tales together. But I wouldn't lump it into a horror for Halloween. And those are some of these like genres that are listed towards the top, where Halloween and like history or horror is. I like, just because these stories were like true life doesn't give me a horrific sort of sensation. And I mean, some of the tales were fairly intriguing, but they weren't like horror in the way that I would define horror. So I'm not sure how they fell into that categories for me personally. Now again, everyone has their own opinions on how this will play out for them. I will say some of the sections for me were a little bit better than others. And because this book has so many different sections, let's just go with The Wild and the Foreboding Landscape, Woman on a Journey, The Haunted House, The Hidden Chamber, Mysterious Omen, An Open Crypt, A Family Cursed. So, those are some of the various subsections within this book. I will tell you that I gravitated to The Haunted House because I've always found that to be fascinating, or even The Hidden Chamber, which, in my personal opinion, I feel like we could kind of go both ways with a haunted house and a hidden chamber. Like, okay, maybe a hidden room is not always in a haunted house, and a haunted house does not always have a hidden room. But we're talking about like something that's usually within a building, right? So anyway, Open Crypt was pretty cool. You know, honestly, the Woman on a Journey, I could take it or leave it. Ghost stories in general are intriguing, but I like haunted houses, the atmosphere of a haunted house a little bit more. Same thing with like a crypt or a mysterious omen, and how people interpret these mysterious omens are kind of cool as well. There is one about the Crossroads, Motorcycle Ghosts, and Resurrection Mary. So that one was a little bit interesting because I guess there are a lot of different references to crossroad demons and various things throughout, let's just say, pop culture. And I'm certain that you could also argue in many beliefs as well, as crossroads being a bit indicative of perhaps a point of choosing, of going one way or the other, But I found that to be a pretty interesting story. And the thing is I think I wish they were more like stories instead of essays around these topics. We didn't play it out in the way that I was hoping to give it the impact I guess I was looking for. But again, that is my personal thoughts. I just wanted to reference a couple of other individuals. So I gave it 4 stars, and I can see that a couple of other individuals also didn't feel that this was working for them. They just felt they weren't the right reader for this book because of the way it was conveyed, as well as this particular person's non-interest in Gothic or paranormal. So I mean, I appreciate that they gave it a chance, but if you're not a fan of Gothic or paranormal, it's probably not going to be a fit for you anyway, unless you're really looking for that historical aspect that borders on the semi-supernatural. Especially the one, like, there was one about ghost ships, and so it was talking about various ships showing up in the fog that would be portents of, like, potential ill omens and such. So, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. But their argument was that their skepticism got the better of them. Fair enough. That is fine. You don't have to believe these stories were real, but it's like, I feel as though we could probably Google some of these stories and find out what the historical references were. And I do agree with her second point, is that she believes the editing could have been tighter and it would have helped. I completely agree. I think we could have taken out some of those personal references to make this story more impactful. So those were just my my personal thoughts, and those were kind of those surface level critiques that I would provide, is that I do think it needed a little bit more editing to give it, if you're going to call it America's Most Gothic, I'm hoping that it's going to hit me like one of those Stranger Than Fiction TV shows that tells me a story that's going to captivate me and keep me reading further on. This one I was kind of like, I could take it or leave, and I could put it down at any particular point, but I do enjoy the discussion of supernatural. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. I don't think there's a way to really spoil this, since I'm not going to talk about each of the individual stories. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not liked and subscribed, I hope you'll consider it, and I will see you on the next page. Have a great one.